Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Pine Street Inn's Home Remedy event. I'm Karen Holmes Ward, Director of Public Affairs at WCVB TV Channel 5, and also host of Cityline, a weekly public affairs program. Please, we invite you to check it out Sundays at noon. Now, you just had a chance to see a number of Pine Street's housing locations in that opening clip. I've been a fan and supporter of Pine Street Inn and the essential work that they do for many years. Pine Street truly is one of the great institutions in this city, and I'm proud and pleased to be here this morning to help showcase their life-changing work. A lot has changed during the past couple of years, but one thing that remains the same is the importance of the work that Pine Street Inn does every day. In fact, their work has become even more critical during this time. And I'm here to remind you how important that you are to the 1,500 individuals who turn to Pine Street every day for shelter and support, but most important, for housing. We're gathered here today as a caring community that wants to take action to support vulnerable individuals. Pine Street is not only moving people off the streets and out of shelter into housing, providing safety and stability, but also guiding them to independent living through job training programs. Their work never stops. The amazing leader who relentlessly guides us towards solving homelessness is Lindia Downey. She is the president and executive director of Pine Street, the woman, the heart and soul behind this great organization. Lindia has shepherded Pine Street's work for over 35 years. Lindia is a woman with tremendous integrity and dedication who's worked tirelessly to ensure that thousands of vulnerable individuals have a chance to rebuild their lives. And look for her in this month's Boston Magazine as one of the 100 most influential Bostonians, a well-deserved honor. Now, please join me in welcoming Lindia Downey.
Karen, thank you so very much for that lovely introduction. And thanks for being with us this morning. It's been just great to have you and Channel 5 as our partner over the years. I want to welcome all of you to this year's event. Fingers crossed, we'll be together in person next year. As we begin today's program, I want to say thank you to our most loyal supporters and friends for all you do for us. Warms my heart and my soul to know that you stand by us, especially throughout the unknowns and the ups and downs of the past couple of years. You've made it possible for us to keep our guests and staff safe. You've made it possible for people to continue to move from the streets and shelter into permanent housing. And most of all, you make it possible for us to think big and contemplate a city without homelessness. Without you, none of this would be possible. And for those of you who are new to what we do at Pine Street, we work to end homelessness every day, pandemic or not. We do this through our street outreach programs, the 5 shelters we run, and the 850 units of housing we operate. We also have 2 job training programs, a catering company called iCater, which is the training vehicle for our food services program, and a housekeeping training program. The goal of these programs is to help people get back into the workplace so they can move towards self-sufficiency. We are thrilled when people move out and don't need our help anymore. We know that the solution to homelessness is a home, and we've spent the last decade expanding housing targeted to those experiencing homelessness. We now have more housing units and shelter beds, many more housing units and shelter beds. And we are looking forward to moving our housing agenda forward in a major way. The 140 new units in Jamaica Plain in partnership with the community builders, and 111 new units in the Back Bay with Beacon Communities. The past couple of years have been challenging, but we found ways to decrowd our shelters and open auxiliary sites to keep our guests safe. As we continue to move hundreds of individuals into permanent housing, we've worked with the city and other partners to address the crisis on Mass Ave. We've converted our Shattuck shelter into a low barrier program with intensive supports for 30 people who are no longer sleeping on mass casts. A number of people have already moved into housing, and we're working hard to help people access treatment programs. In addition to the progress we're making, what I also want to share with you is the true human impact that together we achieve every day. Every one of the 1,500 people we see has a unique story, all with big challenges and we see some small victories and some miracles happen every single day. I want to share a story about Caleb, who's a tenant in one of our houses in JP. He's encountered a lot of challenges in his life, but he has amazing faith and he's moving forward. He's been a resident of one of our houses since 2013. Throughout the 10 years at the house, he's had a whole lot of ups and downs. When he first moved in, he struggled due to substance abuse and lots of conflict within the house with the other tenants. Over time, he got behavioral health support from the staff, started to really get a handle on his substance use. His behavior started to change. He developed an intense and lovely relationship with our staff and reconnected with his faith, with his temple. And all these things really helped Caleb become stable. About a year ago, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. He was in the hospital for quite a long time and is now connected with outpatient treatment. And he's been living with the cancer. He leaned on his support at the house, our staff, the behavioral health team, but his health issues got him thinking about how can I move into a house of my own. Caleb and his partner hunkered down during COVID and did everything they could to find their own independent apartment. He worked within a program called Moving On that helps people move out of our housing into independent housing. He got a Section 8 voucher. He'll soon be moving with his partner into a 2-bedroom apartment, and his partner is going to support his health needs. In addition, he'll receive new furniture through Pine Street Inn's wonderful relationship with Bob's Discount Furniture. But I want to share an email that Caleb sent to our staff, and here's what he wrote. I've been a resident in Pine Street Inn's housing since 2013. I started my journey arriving late one night at the shelter sometime in 2008. I will never forget this period of my life. I have no idea how to thank all the Pine Street Inn personnel who were involved. I hope you can pass this around so you know I am genuinely humbled by gratitude, and I will always have a debt I can never repay. If it were proper, I would bear hug every one of you. I hope you all will take my words of kindness and adoration in its stead. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Stories like Caleb's keep us going. Can you imagine if he was still on the street or in shelter while dealing with cancer and chemotherapy? Yes, miracles happen every day at Pine Street, and your support makes them happen. Caleb is why your support matters. Before I go any farther, I want to take a moment to thank our amazing staff. They've always been my heroes, but the work they've done over the past couple of years have been extraordinary. Those who depend on us do not have many choices in life. The work the staff do every day is a profound responsibility and a profound honor at the same time. We don't want to just solve homelessness. We want to prevent it in the first place. So we've also been focusing on what would it take to prevent people from coming through our shelter door at all. We now have a telephone triage program where we have staff that are specially trained to talk with people and connect them with other resources so they don't have to come to shelter. Sometimes it's friends or family. Sometimes it's a little bit of financial support so they can hang on where they are until we can help them with a longer plan. The best outcome, though, is being able to not come into shelter at all. 365 days a year, we have the honor of working with our guests and tenants. Some need really short-term help through a rough patch. Others need long-term support to build their way back, brick by brick, out of homelessness. Takes time, takes resources, and your support allows us to put more bricks on that figurative and literal structure of home. I especially want to thank our board for their unfailing support through all of our challenges, especially these past 2 years. To our sponsors, you power our solutions, and to name just a couple that have been extraordinary. Bank of America, long-term relationship, and these past couple of years, the support from the Bancel Foundation has been amazing. To all of today's sponsors and to all those you will see on the screen and hear from this morning, thank you for your partnership in our work to end homelessness in Boston. Couldn't do it without you. Now I want to acknowledge Mayor Michelle Wu, who, as you all know, is working very hard to bring more affordable housing into our city. And to our state representative, Aaron Michaelwitz, we're especially grateful to Aaron for this year's House Ways and Means budget and his support in helping us end homelessness. Please enjoy today's programs. I'm especially interested to hear the conversation between Dr. Matthew Desmond, who has studied and written about poverty and homelessness, and our great friend, Callie Crosley from GBH. First up, though, you'll have an opportunity to meet a tenant and a case manager who will share how Pine Street's housing model works and what a difference support services make.
My name is Lonnie Daniels. I am the case management supervisor. So I pretty much supervise about 6 staff and several properties spreading from here in Roxbury to Charlestown, mainly the South End. So one of the things is we have a tenant, Rodney, who came here. He had some ups and downs in life, moved around, and Pine Street has helped him through the staff and other folks to get to a place where he can be comfortable being in his own place now, and that he can be comfortable being in the community.
I'm from Brockton, born and raised. I left Brockton. I was in the service for 6 years. I did my basic training in AIT out in Oklahoma. Came out here to Boston. Didn't have a clue. So people were taking advantage of me left and right at that time. I found out that there was a shelter. Well, found out that it was Pine Street. I'm well respected. Not just in the house, but outside the house. Pine Street has helped me get back into society. Pine Street's helped me getting work, training.
Pine Street is special because everyone has such a huge heart, and they care. They really, really care. And it just shows just the caringness all around.
God bless, I thank Pine Street from the bottom of my heart.
Hi again, everyone. Wow, it's just so amazing to see how staff and tenants work hand in hand, building a sense of community. So now I'm here to ask for your support for Rodney and others like him, and for one of the great institutions in Boston, Pine Street Inn, a place that has literally saved lives for over 50 years. I'm offering you the chance to do something special. Today is the day that you get to transform lives. Yes, this is your chance to offer housing, security, and community to deserving individuals. Pine Street provides immediate comfort and security through a nutritious meal and a clean shelter bed. Beyond that, a path to a permanent place to live and the support to stay housed by connecting to medical and mental health resources, job training, and more. Pine Street's good friends Ted English, chair of Bob's Discount Furniture, and his wife Maureen have pledged $50,000 as a challenge grant to help us raise critically important funds this morning. So I ask you to consider making the most generous gift you possibly can to help us meet that challenge. Now, on your screen, you'll see a green donate button and a QR code. Please click on the button or scan the QR code to make your donation. Help us meet the challenge and raise $100,000 today. The power to transform lives is in your hands, so let's do this. Every dollar is critical. Whether you give $5,000, $500, or $50 today, it's all important. For a home, for food, for beds, for training, for counseling. Now, here's how your support makes a difference. $5,000 provides a week's worth of meals. That's 17,000 meals for guests and tenants. $1,000 supplies our outreach teams with a week's worth of food and supplies for those who are living on the streets. $500 provides hands-on instruction and employment coaching for a job trainee. And $250 provides a week of emergency shelter services for a guest, a safe place to stay with nutritious meals, a clean bed, and counseling services. So on behalf of those whose lives will change because of you, many, many thanks. Many, many thanks. Next up, Bank of America and Bob's Discount Furniture, a couple of our generous supporters, will share brief messages with us.
Good morning. I'm Mihal Chamberlain, President of Bank of America, Massachusetts, and I'm honored to be with you here today. I'm proud to call Pine Street Inn a long-standing partner of Bank of America. We share their commitment to ending homelessness and supporting the most vulnerable members of our community to achieve economic mobility. As the COVID-19 pandemic persists, it continues to test those facing homelessness or housing instability. Pine Street Inn has been a leader through it all, providing the highest level of care and compassion for its guests and protecting the health and safety of everyone who walk through their doors. On behalf of all my colleagues at Bank of America, I want to thank Pine Street Inn and the whole team for everything you do for the greater Boston region. Thank you again and enjoy the event.
Hello, my name is Kurt Papalato, Director of Commercial Sales for Bob's Discount Furniture. For the past 5 years, Bob's has partnered with the Pine Street Inn in their Moving On program. The Moving On program has helped formerly homeless individuals and set them up into independent living situations, and we are honored to support the work of the Inn. During the past 5 years, Bob's has helped over 60 tenants by furnishing their apartments and studios, and I am extremely proud to say that not even COVID could slow down this relationship, as over the past 2 years we helped over 15 individuals by furnishing their apartments and studios. We are extremely proud and honored to partner with the Pine Street Inn and their mission to move these individuals off the streets and out of the shelters into the safety and stability of housing. On behalf of Bob's Discount Furniture, we would like to say thank you to the Pine Street Inn, and we look forward to this continued partnership for many more years to come. Thanks again.
Great supporters. Thank you so much. Next, Boston's new mayor, Michelle Wu, will share her thoughts with us. Since coming into office in November of 2021, her administration has made housing, especially affordable housing, a priority in one of the most expensive housing markets in the country.
Hi everyone, it's Mayor Michelle Wu. Thank you to the Pine Street Inn for inviting me to be part of this fundraiser. I'm so grateful for all the work you do to support our residents experiencing homelessness. You all know and show every day that housing is a basic human right, and you strive each day to meet that need. What you do serves an urgent function in Boston and helps expand our capacity of what's possible. While the City of Boston works to grow housing opportunities for all our residents, we are proud to partner with organizations like Pine Street to ensure that what people are getting in our communities is what they deserve as a baseline and more. Thank you to all of the dedicated volunteers for working each day to connect everyone with the housing and services they need. And thank you to all the sponsors who are making sure Pine Street can continue serving hundreds of our residents every single day.
And thank you, Mayor Wu, for your words of support and for working so closely with Pine Street as we focus on solving homelessness in Boston. Now, I want to give a shout out to Advent International Corporation, ArcLight Capital Partners, and Natixis Investment Managers, 3 more of today's sponsors. ArcLight and Natixis will now share a message with you.
Hello, I'm Dan Revers, the founder of ArcLight Capital. On behalf of the firm, I want to congratulate the Pine Street Inn on the tremendous progress you've made in ending homelessness in the city of Boston. Investing in people is a bedrock principle of our firm, and we are proud to support an organization that is working in our community with the same goal in mind. Getting people off the streets is the first step in rebuilding their lives, and Pine Street Inn's groundbreaking work in building supportive housing for the homeless is literally changing people's lives. We look forward to the day when no one has to spend the evening outdoors in the streets of Boston. Thank you, Pine Street Inn.
Natixis is honored to once again support Pine Street Inn for the Home Remedy Breakfast. We've had a long-standing relationship together and truly value the impact that Pine Street has had on our local community. Home Remedy is an opportunity to highlight the accomplishments of the organization, but it also serves a reminder to us all that there is still work to be done. Natixis is committed to helping Pine Street move that important mission forward. Thank you to all the staff at Pine Street for everything that you do. And thank you to those of you here today supporting the organization and this event.
Great dedication from great sponsors. As we've seen and heard this morning, there is life-changing and life-saving work going on every day at Pine Street Inn. As Linda mentioned earlier, Pine Street's dedicated staff works 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, rain, shine, snow, or pandemic. Next, we're going to hear from Stephanie, one of the amazing people who work at Pine Street, helping pave the way toward housing.
So I've been with Pine Street for 14 years. I initially started off as the intake specialist. So any new guests that entered the shelter, they would meet with me. I would get all their background information and collect that data and put it into our system. But I actually started with Pine Street way before then. I knew about homelessness, but I didn't know the layers to it. And by working here at Pine Street, I've learned that there's far more to a person than their circumstances of being unhoused. There isn't just this cookie cutter homeless individual. It's these folks that have really great and like rich lives, you know, and this is just a moment in their journey and it doesn't define them. But it's also been great to kind of see that I've played a significant part to the point that they're sharing with their family and friends that like I was a tool in them moving into housing. So that's been great. It's given me a purpose, and it's also allowed me to identify that this is a passion for me. It's not just a job. It is my career, but it's also something that's very ingrained in me. I've had family members that have experienced homelessness, and some have received services from Pine Street over the years. Pine Street has really set a fire for me. By working at Pine Street, it's really energized me to really go out there and push forward our mission of ending homelessness and making sure that folks understand that we all have a charge in doing that.
Stephanie, it was wonderful to hear from you and to learn about your efforts. Thank you so much for giving us a sense of what Pine Street's terrific staff do every single day. Now let's listen to a very timely conversation recorded recently between Dr. Matthew Desmond and Callie Crossley. Matthew Desmond is a Princeton-based sociologist and researcher focused on poverty, as well as the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City. Callie Crossley is an award-winning journalist and commentator and host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley on GBH Radio. Let's turn it over to Callie and Matthew.
Welcome, Matt. I want to start where I think people would be curious, because your research into eviction, housing insecurity is really setting the standard in a lot of places. And I wonder if the fact that your family was evicted impacted your decision to go into this field of research. What was that impact, if at all?
I think it probably did matter. So we lost our family home when I was in college. I remember experiencing that event, not really as a politically motivating event. I just remember experiencing it with a mix of sadness and embarrassment. I think a lot of the folks that lose their homes today, it hits like that too. I think that probably worked itself into my subconscious in ways that I don't fully understand. And I think that seeing my family struggle with money produced in me a kind of hatred for poverty and the way it kind of steals life and steals joy. And so I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you did your seminal work in Milwaukee, where you moved into the trailer park, the rooming house, had 8 families that you followed and 2 landlords, again, as I said, that really gave you an up personal, that's the way that you operate anyway. You like to get close and personal with the subject matter. But I wonder if you take what you saw then and what you knew from that experience and apply that to Boston today, where is Boston on the spectrum of eviction and homelessness?
Well, on the one hand, it's doing really well. You know, Boston has a storied history of community activism and tenant organization. City Life Vida Urbana in Boston, for example, has been around for decades, getting laws passed and organizing renters to prevent foreclosure and eviction. The city has a eviction rate now that's far below normal averages, even after the pandemic-induced recession. There's a lot of important laws here in Boston that are pretty unique, which gives tenants certain rights that they don't often enjoy in other places.
For example?
For example, when lawyers defend tenants in Boston's eviction court, they can produce a lot of reasons why a family shouldn't be forced out based on the quality or conditions that they're living in, which is something that just doesn't happen in a city like Milwaukee or Buffalo or a lot of other cities across the country. That's the good news. And the bad news is something that will come to no shock to you and everyone listening, which is just it's such an expensive city to live in. And one of the reasons that some of the most expensive cities don't have the highest eviction rates is because, you know, a lot of the folks that are most at risk of eviction have long moved out and can no longer afford to live in a city like Boston.
So what was the impact of the pandemic on eviction in Greater Boston?
So on the one hand, you know, it's hard to remember this for me anyways, because we recovered so quickly after the recession. But you know, the unemployment rate doubled and doubled again. We were at 14% unemployment. There was real concern that we'd have a massive eviction crisis in the country, which is pretty unique in America and in cities like Boston. You know, Germany and France weren't having this conversation, but we were. And then Massachusetts started, you know, passed an eviction moratorium, a state-led eviction moratorium that was followed by the national eviction moratorium, and then a deep investment in rent relief from the federal government. So $46 billion, that's like taking HUD's budget, doubling it, and throwing it at the problem. That's a huge investment, and it made a ton of difference. So right now, the eviction rates in Boston are still far below historical averages, which is something that I think we should be incredibly proud of and celebrate.
But of course, you know, the moratorium is over now. So what do you anticipate happening here?
So one of the ways we can answer that question is to look at cities that allowed a moratorium to expire quickly and got rid of other protections that some cities developed during the pandemic. For example, in Philadelphia, now mediation services between landlords and tenants is required if a landlord wants to evict a family. That's made a big difference. Cities that haven't gone down that route, you do see evictions coming up back to normal averages, and even in some cities getting much worse than normal averages. So if Boston stays on that track and doesn't fundamentally change the housing, you know, the way that they're doing housing and evictions, then we're going to go back to normal, which was a completely, you know, unsatisfactory place to be for a lot of low-income families, or we can even be in a worse place.
So you've said without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. Please explain that so that we have an understanding that housing has actually always been more than housing as an issue.
Right, exactly. And, you know, if you don't have stable shelter, it's hard to hold down a job, for example. You know, you often can't just stay in your job long enough because your housing slips out from under you. It's hard to keep yourself healthy. And this isn't just in a pandemic, just in normal times. It's hard to keep yourself fed off the streets. Kids can't go to the same school year after year after year to get to know teachers, guidance counselors, friends, because they're facing so much housing instability. You can't root down in your neighborhood, invest in it. We know that when families do that, they can do things like lower the crime rate, increase the civic participation rate. So a lot of the problems we care about, crime, health, education, really come back to this question of, does a family have a stable, affordable place to live? I'll just give you one quick statistic. So when families finally receive a housing voucher after years on the waiting list in America and are able to pay only 30% of their income on rent instead of 60 or 70%, they do one really consistent thing with their money, which is they buy more food and their kids become healthier. And so it shows just the life-giving power, the health-giving power of an affordable home.
Now, as ubiquitous as this is, there are still a lot of people that feel very distant from it. And I wonder, what can an organization like Pine Street do to reduce the stigma around homelessness and eviction and housing insecurity?
Right. And so the housing market isn't broken in America, it's bifurcated, right? For 2/3 of the country, housing works pretty well. Your home is an investment. If you own a home in Boston, you've seen that investment go up and up and up over the years. Your mortgage payment hasn't budged. You know, that's a good arrangement for those of us that are lucky enough to benefit from it. But for the remaining third of the country, the housing market is a totally different beast. And so I think one thing that we need to start asking families to do is to really invest in welcoming and even advocating for affordable housing in their own communities. You know, so we know we all kind of, you ask, you know, your good neighbor, would you like more affordable housing in America? And most of us say yes. But when that affordable housing is planned in our own communities, when it could affect the school district that our kids are zoned to, that's where we start putting up a fight. And that's just not okay. And so I think one way to close that gap is for a lot of us to start showing up at those Tuesday meetings and say, I want this here. I want to invest in this. I think that giving families an opportunity is more important than my wealth growing every year for no work of my own. I think that if we aren't able to do that, then we just can't honestly call ourselves a progressive or liberal or even committed to the cause of equal opportunity.
Now, this maybe is a hopeful question, but I wonder, because it was so grim during the pandemic on many levels, and we got to see the impact of so many people being unhoused, are we at a point now where there is more empathy? Because during this time, we saw people who you might not have thought would be going to the food bank, but the pandemic really impacted them in that way.
That's interesting. I love this question. I think that one of the things that we saw was just how big of a difference the federal government can make in people's lives. And so, you know, you saw our recovery time after the Great Recession, American families in the bottom half of the income distribution, it took a dozen years for them to recover their income. After this recession, it took them 20 months. You know, there was just this massive recovery time. Child poverty was cut by 1/3. Evictions plummeted. So I do think we got this real test case for the impact that the government can make in reducing poverty. And on the other hand, that message doesn't seem to be really sticking with us. You know, we don't seem to be calling our congressmen and saying, hey, can we make this permanent? I really want to invest in this. So I think that it's tricky. And then to your point about empathy, you know, does our care expand more, right? As we see more people kind of hit by this. I think because the recovery was so quick, I don't know if we're going to have like an empathy shock to the system. I think our best option maybe is just a recognition of the power that the federal government can make in these problems. But even then, I worry about, I just worry that we've lost a kind of a language of celebration and revelry when it comes to making real differences.
We have a lot of political acrimony going on right now in the country. I mean, it's just a fraught time. Is it possible, do you think, for us to find some common ground around these issues?
Absolutely. I think that there is bipartisan support for doing things like deepening in investments in housing vouchers to families. There's bipartisan support for driving down the eviction rate. Look, this isn't a red state problem or a blue state problem. It's not a problem that's only in expensive cities like Boston. It's in pretty affordable cities like Indianapolis or Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's in the rural parts of the country, it's in suburban parts of the country. So I think that when we're talking about the housing crisis, we're not just talking about something that aligns, it's only one party's problem. I think that we're talking about a national issue, and we can get bipartisan support to come around these issues. There's been conservative cities or conservative leaning cities that have made deep investments in the housing crisis, and there's been liberal leading cities. So I am hopeful that this is an issue that transcends political polarization, but we need more political will. We need more Americans putting their shoulder to the wheel, and we need more homeowners, frankly, to get involved in this issue as well.
Thank you so much, Matt Desmond.
Thank you so much for having me.
And now, up next, Pine Street's board chair, Pat Jones.
Hi, I'm Pat Jones, chair of the board of this great organization. Thank you, Callie and Matthew, for that important conversation. These are challenges that Pine Street confronts every day. Thanks to everyone for joining us this morning, especially our generous Home Remedy sponsors. Though we're not together in person, we know you stand with us. Our work is more important than ever during these times of uncertainty as we face so many unknowns. We can't thank you enough for your overwhelming support and for the comfort of knowing that you've had our backs. For a moment, let's celebrate the amazing work that Lindia and the entire staff at Pine Street do every day. They've kept the entire operation running, kept guests and tenants safe and healthy. They've continued to move people into housing at remarkable rates and have continued work on 2 major housing developments during this time. They, Lindia and the entire staff, have never wavered on their commitment to the Pine Street motto, never, ever, ever give up. Pine Street has been creative, innovative, resourceful, and resilient as it addresses the ongoing public health challenge. We know that our vulnerable guests and tenants rely on us for the most basic of human needs. Pivoting in response to ongoing health challenges while at the same time staying on track with a vision for the future. This has been the amazing and miraculous work of Lindia and the entire Pine Street staff. Please know that your support makes a difference in the lives of everyone who walk through our doors.
Thank you, Pat, for all you do for Pine Street. And Callie and Matthew, thanks for that critically important conversation. There are so many people living on the edge. That's why we need to do everything we can to prevent people from falling into homelessness in the first place. A lot of food for thought there in that conversation. And as Lindia mentioned earlier, in addition to housing, the other element that gets people back on their feet is a job. With 2 training programs in food services and housekeeping, Pine Street provides the skills and support to help individuals move toward self-sufficiency. Gary, one of the trainees in Pine Street's I Cater training program, will share his story and tell us how Pine Street is providing the training and support needed to move forward.
If it wasn't for Pine Street Inn, I have no idea where I'd be. I was lost. I was just wandering, thinking what to do. Yeah, I've been taking care of my parents for a long time, and they were my main focus. I really couldn't do much else. I had my own apartment, had my own car, and one day they asked me to stay with them, and I said okay, and I had to give all that up. But I'd do it again. I'd do it again in a minute. But I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. When I got here, I went to the wrong door. And there's a guy, Bill, he's a driver. Oh, he asked me, well, do you need anything? Well, that's what he said. And all I said was, I need help. All I said was, I need help, and I got it like that. Yeah, that's all I said. That's why I'm very grateful to the Pine Street Inn, and I cater. Yeah, I'm grateful for the work. The favorite thing I like to do is the work, the work itself. Just doing the work. They always have something new for me to do. There are some things I do every day that I've done a few times, but there's always something else to do.
We were really happy to see Gary grow in the way he has been. So he's been a terrific part of the program. we're quite proud of where he is in the program and how well he's learning.
I mentioned the fact that I like being paid for it. And the main reason for that is my family is great. If I needed something, I've been homeless for like 2 years after my mother died. And I had no job, no money. And they took care of me. No matter what I needed, no matter what I wanted, they were there for me and they got it for me. Now I can give it back to them. Now it's back to normal, because that's how our family is. We do for each other, and I wasn't able to do for anybody for 2 years. And now I can, and that's the part I love the most.
With Gary's great attitude and personality and the training he's receiving in the program, I have no doubt that he will be successful. Folks, based on all you've seen and heard this morning, I'm here to ask one more time for your support. You've seen Callie Crossley and Dr. Matthew Desmond in a conversation that taps into the heart of Pine Street's work. A Pine Street tenant, a trainee, and a staff person, all of whom rise to meet life's challenges every day, have shared their stories. Now I hope you will rise to the challenge and ensure that we meet the match to raise $100,000 in the closing minutes of Home Remedy. Pine Street Inn does remarkable work. Where would our city be without them? But we need your support to keep it all going. Please, please press the green donate button or scan the QR code on your screen and give whatever you're able to give. Every little bit of it makes a difference. On behalf of everyone at Pine Street Inn, we want to thank you so very much. Now, I want to acknowledge a special friend, the Yawkey Foundation, who will touch on their long relationship with Pine Street Inn.
Hi, I'm Maureen Blade, CEO of the Yawkey Foundation. The Yawkey Foundation and Pine Street Inn have a deeply cherished relationship spanning more than 30 years. It began with Jean Yawkey, who recognized the importance of the work being done by Pine Street Inn, especially for vulnerable women. And the Foundation's trustees are honored to carry on this special legacy. Through years of partnership, we've come to understand that Pine Street Inn knows what it takes to end homelessness. Their focus on scaling up housing with supportive services, access to medical and mental health resources, and job training is a critical element of the solution. With the confidence we have in Pine Street Inn's leadership, our trustees were proud to provide a transformational $15 million grant awarded late last year to add 400 to 500 new, much-needed housing units. In closing, I'd just like to say we're nothing short of humbled by the dedication, expertise, and compassion of the remarkable Pine Street Inn team. And the Yawkey Foundation is honored to support their outstanding work, getting individuals off the street, out of shelter, and into a safe place they can call home.
Well, Lydia, you guys have such great support. You and Pine Street Inn, Yawkey Foundation among them. How do you feel? How do you feel this morning?
I just feel amazing. It's been an inspiring morning. We're grateful for all the support. And as we end today's event, if there's one thing I want you to take with you, it's that we know what it takes to end homelessness. Housing, housing, housing. One of the main lessons we learned from this pandemic is that we must do all we can not to go back to crowded shelters. We've got to continue to move forward with housing. By being here today and showing your support, you are helping make that possible. Deeply grateful for all of you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for your help. Can't tell you how much it means to our guests and staff to know that they have a community behind them. On that note, in addition to our wonderful and loyal donors, I want to be sure to thank two of our special partners before we close, the Yawkey Foundation, who have just given us a life-changing gift that we're going to use for more housing, and our great supporters at Liberty Mutual Insurance, who have been long-term and both supporters and volunteers at Pine Street. As I said earlier to all of you with us this morning, your interest and support warms my heart and my soul, makes all the difference for our guests and tenants. I encourage you to keep in touch with us. Check out our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and our website at pinestreetinn.org to learn more about our programs and for the latest opportunities to get involved. Right now, we have a number of virtual opportunities, and we're hoping to welcome back our volunteers very soon.
All right, everybody, Take care, stay well, and we hope to see you soon.